We'll be using a hard net for the net installation. Lay the net across your client's head flat like so, and then tell your client to hold the sides down near their ears. It will be difficult to try to do this on your own, so don't be scared to ask your client for help. You're going to fold the net like a present, so pressing down the middle, then folding over the right side, and then folding over the left side. Holding everything in place, you're going to reach for a needle and you're going to sew down the middle part just so that everything you folded down on the net is secure before you start sewing around the perimeter of the net. Once you come down the braid, you can go to either your left or right, but what you're doing is sewing down the rest of the net along the perimeter braids of your client's head. Just don't accidentally sew into the leave out because it will be a mess from there. So here I slowed down the video to show you guys exactly how I'm stitching. So I go in behind the braid through the net, and then I'm pulling that needle through the middle of the thread, and this is going to create a loop. This is called the single lock stitch method. It's called this because what you're doing here is creating a knot within the thread, so it kind of locks the hair in place. Continuing around the client's head, you want to keep going behind the braid and through the net, making sure the needle goes through the net every single time because we are sewing down the net. So we want this to be secure and in place no matter what. Now let's get into why you would use a hard net when installing hair on your client. Number one, the hard net serves as protection for your client's hair and scalp. It creates a barrier from the wefts because sometimes those wefts could irritate the scalp, itch at the scalp, so it creates that barrier. Number two, it secures your install in place. As your client's hair grows out, it may lose its structure and foundation, so the net kind of holds everything in place, keeps the wefts secure. It also serves as a good protection and security for people who have finer and thinner hair as well. Which brings me to number three. You may have a client whose hair is very thin or they have low density or very fine. In this case, you may have a lot of gaps in the hair, or you may have some places in the hair where it's hair loss, so there's gaps, and the net serves as a filler for those gaps. So instead of sewing the hair directly onto the cornrow, or if it's too spacious, that's where you'll sew the hair onto the net. So you may be wondering, do I need to sew the hair onto the braid at all since I have this net here? And yes, you do. So here are some examples where you would have to consider going between the net and the braid. That would be like the nape area, the sides, and the very end, like near the leave out. That will create extra security in your installation. Examples of areas where you wouldn't have to consider braiding through both the braid and the net would be areas where it's very gappy, the client is experiencing hair loss, or the hair is fine in that area. That's when you'll only sew through the net because the net is strong enough and you don't want to create that extra tension on your client's hair. Now that the net is sewn down completely, I'm going to cut off the extra pieces of the net that are just hanging. I do this so that I'm not confused when installing the hair because I don't want to accidentally sew the hair onto places that I'm not supposed to. So if you're ready to install some hair, let's head over to the next video.